I brought you the Wookiee. I'm holding a thermal detonator.
It's just like, suck it up, Buttercup.
You're going to see some nods to Kirby coming up soon.
Did she look like a mutant?
Not nearly as pretty.
Hey, Billy Joe. I really was like, where am I? So you gotta like when you go and like you go boom, boom, clear, boom.
Hey, let me show you something.
Oh,
So this seems pretty good. I was looking at this. It's got a lot of different things for prepping and improving. It's pretty technical. It's pretty technical, but at least like the images and the examples it gives, like this was interesting. Look at this. So I don't know if you could see it, but it's like super coffee stained. You know, it's pretty bad. Dennis did this and then he had to fix it. So this is kind of interesting. I don't know how much I'll put into play. That's a great cover. I love that cover. And then Overstreet Guide to Grading.
I've seen that. That's so cool.
This is more, and this is all glossy, and it's like this is more practical because it goes. We've got examples all the way from like 0.5, and he takes you all the way through and gives you examples and calls out the faults all the way up. You know, basically to 9 and 9 plus.
That's way cool. Yeah, I've seen that on. I've seen that book online.
I've just wanted to inform myself better about like when I'm looking at something, what do I think it is? Maybe, you know, approximately, you know, what grade is it? Say, hey, look at that. Hulk 181.
Hey.
Guardians number 18. So I still haven't gotten my comic. As a matter of fact, I should look right now. Let's see here. I can't remember the comic journal magazines that Robbie was talking about. It doesn't have any tracking or anything. And I ordered this now. I ordered this on the 29th. So we're talking like 6 days ago. Still doesn't say shipped and doesn't show tracking. There's 2 issues. There was 57 and 59. One of them was one of the ones with the John Byrne stuff in it, as I recall. So anyway, I have no idea where those magazines are. Hey there.
What's up, guys? How are you?
Good. How are
Phillip
you?
Kennedy Johnson.
Yeah.
Superman.
What's up, Brian? How are you?
I'm very well, Philip. Thank you very much for being so gracious to give us some time. I'm like geeked out right now. I'm like geeked out. So
That's super kind of you.
I got all my books here. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks
yeah,
for picking
yeah.
those up. I appreciate it.
Not quite like that, but you know, yeah. So I've been doing a crash course this past week.
So you know you were on there for like 2 hours. So,
Yeah, that's where you go for those.
Chicago's
That's
fun.
awesome.
I've been there a couple of times. I don't know. I can't say I know it real well, but I've enjoyed it when I've been there.
Yeah, it's a great city. The weather is brutal, famously brutal. No, it's one of the few cities I've been to where it kills people in the summer and winter.
I remember the one time my wife and I were there, and I don't remember, but it was late in the year. There wasn't any snow, but we were staying down by the pier, and we ended up going up to the zoo, and we thought that was going to be a good idea. And man, we were not dressed for it, and it was outrageous.
It's rough, yeah.
As Brian would say, this is my compensation gun. Brian likes to talk about Liefeld's compensation guns, like, you know, cable.
Yeah, he's got his observations. It's actually very good.
I was also at a comic shop that went through a hard go. I can't remember if it was the beginning of COVID or if it was sometime before that, but they were in a rough spot. And I think it was early COVID, and Rob reached out to them.
Yeah.
And what did he do? He
drew stuff, donated it.
Yeah, he did some stuff like that to kind of help the store, and that was really cool. He didn't have to do that. I heard about that story where he kind of stepped in to help save the store, and that was really cool. So that definitely earned him some cred in my book.
He's a kind of a historian, which is interesting.
My brother is also kind of in the comics community, and he talked about, he has heard that show, and he said that he kind of tells a lot of behind the scenes stories.
You know, it's interesting that you said that you have a brother, because one of the questions that I was curious about as I was reading Last Sons of America, I'm like, do you have a brother? You know, because
Sure
it's
do.
like you must, you know, based on that story and how that transpires.
Yeah, that's correct. My younger brother, Bill, he is about 10 years younger than me. Like, I'd help him with his homework, being out in the country where the nearest neighbors are not super duper close. This was in Kentucky, darkest Kentucky, like central Kentucky, away from like the cities, like about an hour from either Louisville or Lexington. Not a comic shop. Like during those years, I'd never, like literally never seen a comic store. But my brother is the reason I got into comics. When I was in school, I did a lot of drawing. I wanted to be an artist, but then I also did music. And over time, I kind of went the other way. I kind of leaned into music as the thing that I figured I was probably better at. And that became my way into college and everything, kind of the way out of that little town. But my younger brother kind of went the other way, and he pursued art. He wanted to be a comic artist, but didn't really know how to get started. I was already in the DC, Baltimore area by then. At this time, he was still in Kentucky. Yeah, like, I think he was still living at home. Well, he knew he wanted to do comics, but had no idea how to get started. And just kind of fell for him. I was like, why don't you come out and move in with me? Like, I haven't read a comic in forever, and I kind of like to. Like, just come move in with me. We'll figure it out. That would have been, this is ballpark, probably 2008-ish. He would have been 18, 2009 maybe. So he's moved in with me in the DC area, and we just started finding, like, we found this at the time, just this little store in Annapolis called Third Eye Comics, which has since become this phenomenon of retailers. But at the time, it was just this little store. Like, it was like this little tiny shop next to like a Cash for Gold place or something, just in the middle of nowhere. And they have since they moved up to bigger locations, like 3 or 4 times. Now they have multiple locations. They're one of like the top 5 or 6 retailers in the world.
Wow.
I mean, they're just crushing it. But anyway, but they were brand new and just trying to build up their name. And so we started going to that store, kind of became regulars, and found, conventions and things that we'd never been to a Comic-Con before, either one of us. We literally bought the How to Make Comics for Dummies book and like a bunch of other books like that, just like how to do this. And yeah, just kind of educated ourselves bit by bit, just kind of trolled Artist Alley and talked to a lot of people and kind of figured out how to do this. And I started writing him scripts just to give him something to illustrate, so he had some kind of portfolio.
Okay, interesting.
Before that, he was just doing pinups. He would just do like a single image of Wolverine looking cool.
Right.
But he wasn't giving me any kind of pages. He didn't have pages of sequential images, any kind of storytelling. It was just like, here's this guy that looks cool. So we kind of figured out sequentials and what a script looked like, and kind of figured it out together.
Awesome.
And that was the beginning of all this.
Wow, that's a super great story.
Well, thanks. Yeah, while he was living with me, the seeds for Last Sons of America were kind of planted. There was this in 2010. There was this big earthquake in Haiti. That became this big humanitarian crisis, and a lot of families they don't have the infrastructure there that we do here, where if something like that happens, it was hard for people to find each other, I guess, in some places. And this mission group from the States went down there to find, ostensibly to get orphans and bring them back to the States to be adopted. They ended up trying to get out of there with a bunch of kids who still had families. And I was doing anti-human trafficking work at the time, but I didn't know anything about the for-profit adoption industry. And it kind of set me down this rabbit hole of finding out how that all worked and all the dark sides of how adoption stuff works overseas.
Interesting.
And that became Last Sons of America. So it was kind of a story about a world in which Americans can't have kids anymore, and kids become like money. But it was also a story about 2 brothers that kind of need each other, kind of, their flaws and strengths kind of, fill each other in. They kind of become one person. Because sometimes my brother and I feel that way, but we do have a very close relationship. And even though you would never know that we're brothers to look at us, there's a bond there that is hard to quantify. So that kind of became the heart of that book.
Fresh socks.
Bring me flowers.
Yeah, he really said that.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Superman just kind of hangs back and watches John fly, and just watches him and let his heart just fill with love for him. So his relationship with John, I take from my own relationship with my own son, like Atticus Finch. I love that character, not just in the film, the book too. I just love that character. The Christopher Reeve depiction of Superman in the old films, I think Christopher Reeve's depiction of Superman is perfect. Just his inherent goodness that you see in every stroke, like just every little facial expression and every word. He's strong but gentle. He's just this inherent goodness. You just trust him, like when you see him, you should feel, trust and hope. He it's that little detail, that care for individual people. What should we do then? Abandon the ones who don't cheer for us? Is that what our heroes taught us?
Are you a big Star Wars fan?
Yeah, I like Star Wars. I am amused by how hardcore some people are about it. I do like Star Wars, and honestly, there was probably my favorite Star Wars content ever was the first episode from Star Wars Visions. The first episode of that was so unbelievably dope. It was so, as you know, famously George Lucas was very inspired by the work of Kurosawa when he was putting all that together. And they did a straight up Kurosawa take, like a short story, all very much in the style of Kurosawa, like black and white almost entirely. And the animation style was, I think it was kind of like Afro Samurai. I'm not sure if it was the same studio or not, but it was very much like that. And it was so incredibly cool. I mean, they just went all in on the old feudal Japan kind of style. It was, oh my God, it was incredible. And I really like the Obi-Wan show. I really like watching the Bad Batch with my son. My son loves Bad Batch and the Mandalorian and Boba Fett. And like he really loves those shows. And I, by extension, really enjoy those shows because I love watching those with him.
The reference, it is a young Spanish speaking girl in the Last Sons of America. She doesn't speak any English except quotes from Star Wars.
Okay.
And so when these two brothers are attempting to save her from her plight, she speaks English, but it's only quotes from, and I think it's only from episode 1, isn't it? Or excuse me, 4.
I think it's the whole original trilogy. At one point,
they are sprinkled through.
There's a trap thing shows up, which could arguably be from Empire or Jedi.
Have you ever read The White Plague by Frank Herbert?
Oh my God, I don't think I have. I'm ashamed to say.
The backstory of The Last Sons with the terrorist attack, and Americans couldn't have children anymore. In The White Plague, circa 71, 73, again, terrorist, a biological attack, and it kills all the women. So it's very much a different story than yours, but there was that little seed that was kind of close. And what would society do? So your story was kind of about what would society do if you couldn't have children, and his story was what would society do if there were almost no women left. And so there's a little bit of parallel there. They diverge, but I was just like, I wonder if he knew about that. But you already kind of explained like how you got to where your story came from.
Thank you guys a ton for having me on. Thanks to the viewers. Appreciate you guys' time.
The thing that really got me into comics was the death of Superman. You know, that was just like, oh my God, they're killing Superman, right? So, and the return of Superman, I was all about it. And then recently I got into Bendis's Superman, and I really liked what he did. I enjoyed it. Then it's like Phillip Kennedy Johnson, and I'm like, who is Phillip Kennedy Johnson? I don't know this fellow. I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I got to tell you, man, like, your Superman is excellent. And I pre-ordered the other trade paperback like 2 weeks ago, because that's why I originally was like, hey, Phil, can you come on like in February, because I wanted to finish the Warworld story.
There are other issues that I would have liked to have been included in there, like kind of issues that, like an annual, or like the Batman Superman and the Authority issue that happened between Warworld Rising and the Arena. Like there are other bits that didn't make it into the trades that I would have included for sure.
Like this one. Like, was because when I picked this up and I started off with, because I had read on the grapevine and whatnot, like, oh, Superman, the Authority, and he teams up, and so all of a sudden I jumped from this book, and all of a sudden Superman's with the Authority, and I'm like, I don't get it completely, but I'm here for the ride.
Yeah, well, it ties in somewhat with Grant Morrison and Mikkel Haneen's book, Superman and the Authority. Is a 4-part miniseries that they did. It's not required reading. Basically, it just shows how he gets the team together and kind of why. It's a very different kind of book. Like, Grant has such a clear voice that we didn't try to homogenize our voices or anything. It was like, it's very much a Grant book, and this is one of mine. But it's cool. I mean, obviously it's Grant Morrison Superman, so it's great. Funny story. Around the time, I think the last issue in the Warworld Rising book is the one. See, the last issue was 1035. And that was the one at the very end. You see the Authority show up with Superman. Superman he got another team together because the Justice League turned him down. And then there is an issue, I think it's in that issue actually, with Batman's like, is it true you got another team together? Superman's like, yeah, it is. And he says, tell me about him. And then that leads into this other spinoff issue, because that was when the Batman and Superman book ended. There was a Batman Superman series that had just finished its run. It's very recent. It was maybe like a year ago, but
Okay,
that series had just ended, and there was 1 month on the shelf where there was no Batman Superman book, and they try to keep something like that. They're
sure.
like, "Would you want to do a Batman Superman and the Authority book?" It's like that's a lot of characters. Like that's a big, even just the titles look clunky. But they were like, "Yeah, do you want to do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." I mean, I was like, they just left for War World." I'm like, "Yeah, but do you want to?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll figure something out." So that's when I added that thing in 1035 where Batman's like, "Tell me about your team." And so basically, Batman has something come up, and he gives Superman and his team kind of a trial run before they go up to War World to do their thing.
Gotcha.
And it sets up a villain like an organization, like a multiversal thing that I hope to bring back out at some point. So if you're only reading the trades, you probably haven't read it.
Yes.
And
Right.
if you can find Batman, Superman, and the Authority, I'm very proud of that issue.
Is it like a one shot or
It's a one shot, yeah,
one shot? Okay.
and it's a double sized thing. And I came up with an idea for this multiverse thing where half the story is told in our in like main continuity, and half of it is told in this other universe. And when they cross over, everything looks super different, including what they look like. So we kind of wrote to the contrast rather than try to like cover it up or be embarrassed about it. And it made a really cool style change. I really dug how it turned out. It made me really have to stretch, kind of flex my creative muscles to make it work and make sure that both guys got exactly 20 pages and really make it work. And I was super pleased with how it turned out. Both artists really brought it and did a great job, kind of feathering the transitions and making it all work. Yes, Trevor.
Is that how you
Yeah,
say his
Trevor
name?
Harrison did it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, super great artist and also very distinct style and nothing like Ben's. And both of them are just like virtuosos, but nothing alike.
Phil, when you write, do you write full script
Yeah,
or depend on the artist or
I usually do. Very rarely have I found an artist who does not like full script.
Seems like it.
Ricardo actually likes. There are artists who like flexibility for sure. So basically, I've kind of fallen into the habit of writing in full script, but with the understanding that everything in there is up for debate and for change. I read a script by Bendis once in which he was telling the artist. I think it was the first issue he was doing with this one artist, and he said that he was telling the artist a story so that they can tell a story. And I like that. I like the way that was put. So I do tend to give a lot of detail in the script. They're kind of long, not Alan Moore long, but kind of long, and all with the understanding like, and I understand that I will get things back and they will look different, and that's what I want. There was one time where an artist forgot to add a character in a panel and or on this whole page, and that was the note. And I was like, this looks really great. This one character is missing, and it's important that we establish the person is here. And that was one where I had to kind of push back. And we're like, it
No,
really
we needed
that's
this.
going to change everything a lot. Actually,
Yeah.
like here. This one really matters. Just because my step in the process happens before theirs doesn't mean they work for me.
Right.
We're
Right.
partners. I really like to see the layouts and then the pencils and then the colors and everything as they go, so that if there's any kind of a misunderstanding or if there's a change that
Get it earlier.
impacts the story in a way that they don't anticipate, I can kind of course correct and be like, actually, let's do this. But I also want them to give me notes in that same way. It was with Daniel Semperi in the War World Rising arc. It was in Gotham. Superman was basically asking Batman's help, like, "Hey, there, I got this thing. I need the Justice League's help on War World." And so he goes to Gotham, and Batman is taking down these gun runners on a
on
busy
the boat?
street. It's like there's this
Oh,
shootout happening on the street in the rain, in the dark. And Superman's just he's got his arms crossed. He's kind of floating along while Batman takes out all these dudes. He's not interfering. He's like, I'm just going to let you do your thing. I know how this goes. And there was a scene in which Batman he's on the hood, he's on the front windshield of a car. They're shooting at him. And then he leaps off just in time for the bad guys to hit like a light pole. And then Batman kind of swoops onto the next car. And it's meant to, I think I invoke the Arkham games, like when he jumps
yes.
off the top of the car and kind of like glides onto the next one, and his cape is open and it looks very big, bat like, and awesome. And it came back very different. I said something like I was envisioning something in my head a certain way, and Daniel was like, "If we do it from below instead, it's going to look way more dramatic and cool if we do it like that." And he showed me what he was talking about. I'm like, "You're totally right. That's
Right.
it. Exactly. That one on the right in the middle. That was totally Daniel, where the guy shooting up at Batman as he glides down on him.
Yeah.
I envisioned it very differently.
I love this right here. You see the guy's face. Like he
I know, me
punches
too.
the windshield, scrunch.
Yeah, that's exactly as I pictured it. Like I just want to see
That's
like
awesome.
the dude's nose going away, and that's the end of the scene.
When you came up with this idea, DC was moving, right? And they asked you for a filler. Do I understand correctly? And so you came up with the story to like take Superman out, like away, so John could do his thing in Taylor's book.
It was a little more dynamic than that. So 5G was going to happen. You guys know about that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So when an editor told me about 5G, it's like, so we're gonna build this timeline in which the characters showed up at a very specific year. They're of this age this year. If you're seeing Batman at age 30, that means it's 1981 or whatever, and that will never change. So if you see Batman in modern day, it's a different guy, and Bruce Wayne is super old. One of my first questions was, how long is this going to last? And the editor was like, well, this is going to be this is what DC is going to be for the foreseeable future. I'm like, yeah, but really though. And he was like, that's the guidance. The guidance is that this is going to be forever. I'm like, okay, whatever. So let's do it. They brought together some unbelievable creators during that time, and there was some wildly creative and kick-ass ideas coming out of this. I mean, it was just a really invigorating time creatively. There was a big shakeup with editorial, and like everything changed all at once. But there were all these really awesome ideas that we'd been building towards, and a lot of them we still really wanted to do. And some of those involved my stuff. They kind of asked me to be the quote unquote showrunner for the cosmic line of books.
Wow.
Because I mean, they'd seen The Last God and how I put way too much time into the world building and just built all these different worlds and languages. And one of the things that we were going to do was change the origin and the nature of Warworld and tie it in with the Kirbyverse, with the first world stuff.
Wow.
Or fourth world stuff. And I just wanted to tie it all together a little more.
Some of the upcoming stuff, I think you said, is going to touch on this, is it not?
Yeah. Well, I'll try not to spoil more for you.
I know Superman wins, but you know,
do you though? No. But it's,
hey.
Yeah,
I remember all the speculation. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there is stuff. You're gonna see some nods to Kirby coming up soon.
Where did Phillip get the word Philogian from?
I don't remember.
Is there a specific thing that you find a lot of ideas come to you?
I try to just kind of waller in stories I like, and like just let other stories inspire me, you know, or things in real life as well. As far as the world building, making up aspects of different religions or languages and things like that. I try to find aspects of these dead cultures that people don't necessarily know about anymore. There's all these dead languages that nobody speaks anymore. And then kind of reverse engineer the whole thing. Like where are they from? What kind of places, what kind of Earth culture are they remotely similar to? And then like, for example, like Mesoamerica, I'll go start looking into Mesoamerican languages that aren't used anymore and see what various ones look like or sound like, and just kind of build a new language kind of in the quasi style of another thing that looks very alien and unlike anything that we see in modern day.
You hint to that, the shepherds in the Low Road West and their language.
Yeah,
very, very alien and but yet seemed to be designed. It wasn't just like nonsense.
Exactly. It can't just be gibberish. Like there's a book about it by the guy who created the language of the Khal Drogo and his people, the horse lords of Game of Thrones. He as an example, he used the beginning of Return of the Jedi, where Leia says something like, when she's dressed up like the bounty hunter, she's like,
"Oh right,
yeah, something like that." And that means like, you know, I brought you the Wookiee. I'm holding a thermal detonator. That can't possibly be what she's really saying. You know, I want it to hold up like Tolkien holds up, where you can actually just pick it apart and just keep diving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and never see the seams. I don't want to break the illusion for anybody.
So we know that Tolkien made up numerous languages for Middle Earth. Early on, when The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship was published, it has that strip of rune on the top and the bottom of the title page areas. And it means nothing to us, right? But he sees it after it's published and he's like, there's a typo. And so they had to change the characters to correct whatever it said in the opening of the title pages, because his language was wrong, and whatever the words were supposed to say, it was not spelling it correctly. So,
dude, that's so cool to hear that, because I had that exact same experience on The Last God. There's also back matter at the end of every issue. Like, usually, I think it was 4 pages for most of those, and it would be like little prose stories, like little folk tales in world, or an excerpt of an ancient poem that was found in world. It's like the earliest fragment of their written language, or journal entries or songs. There's actually music, like sheet music, that was written in basically treble clef real life music notation. Cool. But also you can also see the notation in what they read there. Like I made up a musical notation for that world. Mm-hmm. And there's a design, like a letterer that also does design work, and he did his gig was doing all the back matter pages. And I made up this musical notation that doesn't exist outside of this book. And so I would send him the pencil of what it was supposed to look like. And then he would do it in this really cool, like make it look like it was ink brush and all that. But I'd always have to see it, because very often there would be little things like to his eye, it looks identical. Mm-hmm. But the note of this, like in modern Western notation, in real life, like the stem that connects the note head to the flag is kind of meaningless. But the stems in that music notation dictates like length, like where it strikes in the beat and everything. And so if it wasn't right, I had to be like, Steve, I'm sorry, this one, like, look real close. Like it needs to be half. This line needs to end like 2/3 of the way down between the flag and the head. Blah blah blah. Yeah, I want people to be able to actually decode the music and play it if they want to.
That's cool.
And the same thing with the languages. It's an unthinkable amount of work.
Sure.
But it has to be real, has to feel real. Yeah, 1051 hits shelves. Let me think.
We're coming close, right?
25th, I believe.
Okay.
Shoot, I should be ready for this. Either the 18th or 24th, I believe, actually.
Yeah, right in that zone, I think.
I think people need to see that it's possible to have absolute power and wield it with absolute compassion and humility, and not have it corrupt absolutely the way the cliche goes, and honestly the way it usually does happen. I need to believe that Superman exists. I try to show people a Superman that shows us the way, shows me how to be the best father, and how people should treat each other, and how people should act when someone else is in trouble. I have one dear friend, a really amazing person, who holds herself to this unbelievably high standard, but is not judgy or elitist about it. And there's definitely a lot of her in there. I look to my own relationship with my own son and how I want his life to be. I just have so much hope for the world through him.